This episode has been brought to you by JustNForm.com. If you're tired of being censored, tired of having your data stolen and sold, go to JustNForm.com, a social media site where all voices are welcome.
So this morning on CNN, Tulsi was challenged about her stances on encouraging Donald Trump to go see Kim Jong-un and her visit to Syria. Take a look.
Okay, I want to ask you about your presidential bid. Since you announced that you're running for president last weekend on Van Jones' show, you have faced some really harsh criticism from fellow Democrats. Former Governor and DNC Chair Howard Dean said you're not qualified. Former Senator Claire McCaskill called you Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's bestie. What do you make of all this criticism from Democrats?
I look forward to debating the issues. People who are simply interested in name-calling don't appear to be able to debate the substance of whatever issue they may disagree on. I'm focused on the issues. I'm focused on how I can best offer to be of service to the American people and bring about solutions that'll positively impact their lives. One of the reasons Democrats have been critical of your bid is because you met with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad during that trip to Syria in 2017. You told me right after you got back, you told me you did so because you think, quote, we've got to be able to meet with anyone that we need to if there's a possibility that we can achieve peace, unquote. Obviously, peace has not been achieved. Looking back on that meeting, do you have any regrets? No, I think that it continues to be very important for any leader in this country to be willing to meet with others, whether they be friends or adversaries or potential adversaries, if we are serious about the pursuit of peace and securing our country. You know, Jake, you often acknowledge and bring to the forefront the cost of war and our troops and who pays the price. And as a veteran, you know, I've been serving in the Army National Guard now for 15 years and continue to served on 2 Middle East deployments. I've seen this cost of war firsthand, which is why I fight so hard for peace. And that's the reality of the situation that we're facing here.
I love it. I love it. Listen, these is two things that Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, in my opinion, excel at better than anyone else, right? Anybody. When they try and derail the conversation, when they try to change the narrative, when they try to control the way that people perceive a Tulsi Gabbard or Bernie Sanders, Tulsi and Bernie always, hold on, bring it back. See, whenever he tried to point out, that kind of pissed me off too, the question. Oh, well, what do you say about these people who are calling you names like they're 6 years old in the first grade? First of all, why are we even talking about that? But second of all, seriously, first of all, why are we talking about that? I'm not even joking. There are so many policy questions you could ask Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, she's visited so many countries, spoken to so many leaders, been involved in so many things. Why aren't you asking about her election integrity legislation? Why aren't you, if you're going to talk about the things that she did as far as going to visit these countries to engage with their leaders to figure out if she can broker peace somehow, why not talk about the fact that you introduced a bill called the Stop Arming Terrorism Act so that she can make sure that she put her money where her mouth is? Why aren't those questions being asked? But instead, she's forced to entertain questions about people calling them immature name-calling, which honestly keeps Howard Dean in the in the picture more than he needs to be. This is bolsters his name. She gets nothing from this, but she immediately takes back control of that conversation, saying they resort to name calling because they don't want to address policy substance, because they know they would get destroyed on policy substance, because for the last 3 to 4 years, my record has been impeccable. The work that I've put in to make sure that we can broker peace has been outstanding, has gone uncelebrated, not only by the Democratic establishment, by the Republican establishment, but by the mainstream media as well. In fact, the only time that the mainstream has had Tulsi Gabbard on as of late, and the only reason they're being forced to put her on, because they have to bring her on now in order to attack her. But I will say this, that's a better step than what they did with Bernie Sanders, because when Bernie Sanders announced, they tried to ignore him at all costs because they knew exactly how dangerous he is. Because even though the majority of America didn't know who Bernie Sanders was, the establishment knew who he was. He's been a thorn in their side for a while, and now that Tulsi Gabbard is becoming a thorn in their side, they're trying their hardest to keep her under wraps. And at first they did ignore her, but I've always said they'll ignore you at first. Then they'll attack you, make fun of you. But eventually you end up winning. Because you are a legitimate threat. Now, to discuss what Tulsi Gabbard said. Tulsi Gabbard went to, in case you didn't know, Tulsi Gabbard did go visit Assad. And for them to say that she's besties with Assad after one visit is akin to them saying that she's besties with Modi after one visit, even though she visited all of the parties in India and did events with all of the parties in India because she wants to broker peace between all of the parties. She wants to be able to engage in potential trade talks and international relations with all the parties because she's a U.S. congresswoman, and she has more interest in peace than war. She understands that Syria is a very tumultuous issue, and it's cut and dry in the sense that America shouldn't be involved in it, but it's something you kind of have to be there to see. It's very similar to the narrative that was perpetuated by Israel and Palestine. We have been conditioned to believe Muslim bad, Israeli good. Many Palestinians are Muslim, therefore Palestine is bad, and Israel is defending itself. Once people began to visit, once Israelis started coming to America, which has grown in prominence really over the last 6 or 7 years, believe it or not, because they get a lot of benefits. Anyway, that's a different discussion. But that narrative started being questioned. They're like, hold on, why are we assuming that Palestine is in the wrong here? And also, how can you be a victim if you have the nuclear weapon? Oh shit, you're not the victim, you're just racist as hell. You're creating a modern day apartheid. So, but the only way that you can really get because our media is corrupt, right? Our media lies to us. Western media constantly lies. The only way that you can really get a grasp on this is to be there yourself or talk to someone who is unbiased, directly, who has been there. That's what Tulsi Gabbard tried to give to the American people. She says, I'm not going to make a single vote, advocate for a single troop on the ground until I understand exactly what was happening or what is happening in Syria right now. Then she goes over there and finds out the United States is arming terrorists. The United States is arming Al-Qaeda. The United States is arming ISIS, and yet we say we're there to fight ISIS. I don't think that Assad is that bad at all. Not saying, she didn't say, oh, he's 100% innocent, because she couldn't say with certainty, without proof, that he is 100% innocent, although in America, you are innocent until proven guilty. But what she did say is, we are only escalating the situation in Syria, and that our presence there is not desired nor wanted by anybody but the terrorists that are involved in the situation, quote unquote rebels. Now, why would the establishment attack her for that? Well, because that calls for de-escalation of violence in Syria. And if you all recall, there are a lot of stocks wrapped up in war. Just look at what happened in the stock market before, whenever Trump brokered peace with North Korea. The stocks plummeted. I'm not even joking. In the moment that the stocks plummeted, Democrats came out and, you can't defend North Korea. You can't broker peace with North Korea. They're evil. If you broker peace, there won't be peace. That's basically what they said. Not even joking. So, of course, and you got to remember, I don't know if you all know this. I've known a couple of state representatives. I know a couple of U.S. representatives. But I know a lot of people in D.C. And one thing you have to know is that you can't assume because somebody is a congressperson or a president that they're actually smart. Why would I say that? Because you have to understand, when you have all the money, the family lineage, and the resources in the world, it's easy to become a congressperson. You just have to be willing to take bribes from the right people, and boom, here's your seat. There are some people who may even be well-meaning, but they're stupid. And they believe everything that's put in front of them, which is really emblematic, by the way, of the United States education system. But that's a different discussion for a different day. But they believe what's put in front of them because that's how Americans have been taught to think. So that is when we get into positions of power. This isn't just in Congress, but generally any and everywhere in America, any job in America. I was in the Army. That's the way that the Army is ran. You get some information, you take it on its face, you question it, you're going to get an Article 15 or a court-martial, and you might end up in jail. You know, you might lose your rank, but you're probably going to end up in jail. That's how it works. So when these Congress people get these reports, and they're like, this is true. Why? Because the intelligence community said it is, excuse me. And they're like, well, but what about all of these other facts? Don't question that. Don't do that. You're an Assad apologist. You're a Gaddafi apologist. Okay, I won't question anything. I'm sorry. My bad. That's how it's ran. The thing is, just like in the Army, if you're a veteran, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Intelligent people who question are ostracized in the Army. It's like people who question their high school teachers on what took place in slavery, for example, or what took place during the genocide of Native Americans. They're oftentimes ostracized as well. Professors or teachers who question curriculums are ostracized as well. That is how America has always operated. So it is not really all that surprising to see Tulsi Gabbard being ostracized by the establishment in the same way that Bernie Sanders was. Because Bernie Sanders was silenced by the media forever. How was Obama, quote unquote, was a Democratic star? But Bernie Sanders was never considered a Democratic star, despite all the success he brought to Vermont in the name of progressive values. Because he never, I can't say never, but he rarely accepted the normalcy or truisms of the establishment on face value. I'm not saying people don't make mistakes, because that does happen. But a lot of the times, the people who made mistakes and have acknowledged them, that is why they question the logic behind decisions that are made. Same thing about Tulsi urging Trump to broker peace with North Korea. One line, as a veteran, speaks to me more than almost anything else. She says, I know what the price is of war. I know who pays that price. It isn't you. It isn't the president. It isn't these generals like Mad Dog Mattis. It isn't the Secretary of Defense. Oftentimes, it isn't a battalion or brigade commander who gets the big paychecks. The people who get paid the most don't pay the price. And only people with empathy, sympathy, and any type of conscience can understand that if you have a chance to ensure peace, you take it. Damn what the critics say. You meet with anybody you have to. She didn't say bend over, but she said you meet with anyone you have to in order to make peace a reality. And I will always agree with that. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. You can donate to our Patreon and keep helping the network grow by clicking on the link in the description below. And also, make sure you join us at JustNForm.com. And finally, make sure you subscribe to us on Roku and be part of the very first independent news network on Roku TV. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.